Hello, this is Gerald Jovans. It's not actually that difficult to recognize how we recognize actually letters. The system itself, the system itself is based upon exactly the same thing as what we hear and how we associate these things very automatically. If it's in a very short time that we hear something in a very short time notice, time is also almost of no importance. It's just now immediately that I recognize it. And that's the way how we recognize placements, things that we can immediately use, immediately associate. And there are a couple of associations where you can have them, in which certainty you can see them. These points of references are related with nine sorts of letters, and they build up in complexities. It's into 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points into the center, a bit further away or outside it. It's the way to recognize things into 1 point quickly or with some doubt, and all these variations that you can have there are about 9 letters. Otherwise, you can also have letters that are not very quickly recognized, or you have to take some time for it, or you have to listen. Okay, where is it going to? Like A, O, they're going to somewhere, and where does it start? Where does it end? There are variations there, almost like 9 variations again that you have there. Actually, in fact, even 10 variations, because at a certain point you can say, okay, we have a direction there which goes inwardly, another one which goes outwardly in a similar way. That's why you have 10 letters in the second option of complexity. The last option of complexity are the letters that, like vibrations, like noise, all these things that have actually not a direct reference in space, not a direct reference in timing, but they have an influence on our time and space associations. And the time and space in general is just the word itself where it has an influence. Like the R has an influence on the vibrations into the word, or other words like with S, it has an influence on the surroundings, the effect of what a word has once it has an S in it. We sense it also differently when it is not. That's the way how we associate letters. You can visualize them as well. The visualizations are helpful too. There's also a bit of a method for that to make the visualization possible and more clear and so on. And what will we do today? I will have the association with 2 words, and I think this was interesting. 2 words which sound exactly the same, but which are two completely different things. I'm talking about heart and heart. It's a small intonation difference, but they are 2 different words. And it's interesting to notice they are written differently, so also the written elements, they direct you into a certain direction also, where you have to think to with which elements are dominating. So that's a reminder which elements are dominating. Even the structure, the structure of itself should be actually quite related. I'm not going to work too hard on this one. I'm not going to make it to perfection, but I'll let you notice actually by adding the elements that you see that the structure has an influence, and by having the emphasis somewhere else, the influence emphasizes something else. Actually, not much more than that. I'm not going to be too perfect in doing this. But the interesting thing is also when we look into other variations of these words in other languages which have the same foundation, like you have the words not just in English but also like in Dutch or in German. All these words have some relationships, but they are pronounced somewhat differently, and are also written somewhat differently. For heart in Dutch, it is hart, almost the same thing. For heart, from the English word in Dutch, it is hart. The same word as the heart. It's exactly the same word, only written differently with the D. In German, you have also hart, but it means heart, and that's written with a T, which seems to be completely odd or off, and doesn't seem that the references really could be about the same thing, because the choice is towards the other word. Nevertheless, if you look into where hart has been used, it's not used in all the associations we associate with heart with a D. Only one very specific association with heart will be used and will be associated in German and still could fit with that letter T. Heart itself in German is Herz. So let's find out where the positions are and how the balance between these positions is expressed actually by as a kind of expression which gives you already a clue in which direction we have to think with that word. But first, H. The H itself is that area which is actually about the restricting area or framing of the area in which actually our full perspective will happen. And this is together in a time and space context, which means here I have the object or the event, the definition, and this definition works into a certain area which has these definitions available. That's more or less what H wants to say. I often describe it also as like this is the vivid space, like the air in which the full thing can be prosperous. But in general, I can just say, no, it's just the time and space, the right time and space in which these conditions are met. And I will describe now the conditions with the other letters. Of course, it could be, depending on the vibration, the continuation of its repetition wave in the background, in which I will always make the definition of here's a contemporary moment in which the continuations where all the things can happen all the time, they happen within this rhythm of frame. There it can happen. That's actually the thing. Depending on the wave, of course, how you express it, you can the space itself can be expressed bigger. So we will adapt our focus towards where we are talking about the thing or the space itself where we're talking about. The space itself usually expressed by vowels. The vowels are both of them have the letter A in them. A is the area of focus in space onto an object. It has actually a focus that notices, okay, here I know where the object is, and that's my main focus. There I will focus upon. Actually, it's not just ha-a, not in English. In English, in these both words, they are expressed R and R, R. And the R is actually a combination of O with A, written as A as well, but it's associated within that extra association of O. What does O mean? Where is it about? The definition of O is defined also in my book and in various videos as well. I explain it as a direction, following a direction, a starting point of a direction of where things are going. And these things are going outside its own space into its environment, as if you say, okay, here's the object, but I cross this environment, and it is this environment that I'm going to meet and going to see what I can do in that environment. So O and A combined is more like I have a space, but this space is movable, is changeable, it's adapting. So O, R, also R, which has a slight O in it, has this idea associated in it as well, that it is somewhat movable. It's adaptable. It's adaptable to its environment. So that's the object itself, not just a steady fixed object, but also an object which has and which is about adaptation, a way you're going to adapt to. So in this combination, so it has a slight move in it, a pulse also, especially with this H, it has this pulse. The H itself is this whole area in which the pulse can live and so on. Here again, it is even emphasized even more, that is not just about a steady form, a steady object, but it has this adaptation to the pulse as well, like the heart has that as well. And what shall I do? I put the A bit higher into the O zone, so the zone of the timing, so that means that there will be a timing involved. And of course I can have the frame over it, the frame and the pulse in the background, so that gives me already a better idea what my focus will be about. This time-space frame in which an object of space is, which is in an adaptable move or adaptable to a certain change or changeable condition that repeats itself in that pulse in the background where H is living. The R itself makes connections, and it makes connections from the big pulse to the small area in which this movement appears. With D to it, it changes the perspective a little bit, because D is the letter in the second category which starts from space, but which actually says there's an unstable condition in space, and I'm going to watch over that. I will adapt to a change, and I try to adapt to that change, and I'm aware of that change, that I do no longer have a steady point in space. That point, which is expressed by T, which is there in the middle, you see the T, goes towards that point. But that point, actually, even when I try to connect to it, is actually somewhat unstable. So the heart itself, even has that influence that it can adapt and so on, has this approach towards the awareness that there is this difference in the middle, this difference in focusing upon a steadiness in its point. It's steady, maybe, yes, but it's not something I can 100% count on, because there is something that is different there. That's the D. And in this space-time frame, there is this pressure, actually, this pressure that pressures itself towards the idea that, oh no, there is an element of change that is also part of the essence of this object when I express heart with H, A, R, and D. It's actually like in the middle. I have this pressure inside, in this heart, within this heart, which has a pressure inside. Within awareness, there is something that is different in that core, actually. Heart, on the other hand, is also expressed towards the T, and with the R has actually this slightly movable inner and adaptable inner circle. But even though this pulse and these impulses follow a steady time frame, a steady placement every time. Hart in Dutch is much more focused not about all this movement and adaptation. It's much more simple. It's much more about the form. The form itself is steady. The A is almost like a circle, but with the connections to it and connections from it, with a T in the middle and going up. In combination with the R, which goes to it, goes from it, it still goes towards a certain core of essence, actually the heart of things as well, in which this occurs. The Hart is a German word as well, which actually means hard, or not like tough, but more like the hardness of material. And only there is again going to that core in which you're confronted that there it is, there you connect to and has a strong core, actually a strong center core actually. That's more or less the association that I have there, because it still remains confusing that hart, in just one meaning in German, refers to a word which in English is heart with a D. But I continue to make the comparison now also to the German word for heart, which has the letter E instead, Herz. So also there is the H, which I immediately place into the timing processes, the timing process in the middle between you and me, the timing process, the framing, in which there is a timing from you to me, from me to you, towards the changes, from my point of view to yours point of view. There's an interconnection there, and watching over the changes. The H frames these changes that can happen between as changes. The R again makes these connections towards again the T, towards that middle, or from the middle onwards, actually, with this connection. And with this connection, it makes the word hert, but the Z will again go back inwardly. The Z is the vibration inwardly. It's the direction that I have to go inwardly. Vibrating, what is outside, what is connecting, will be vibrated inwardly as well. And that's more or less, the Herz will do that. The Z in the middle, the H, the whole area in which it lives, the R, the connecting towards the heart, and from the heart towards that point again within, and the Z with these vibrations. And that's these were all the words. Like I said before, it isn't perfect how I explain them, and it could be better. But I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I just wanted to pick out the letters and just show you, like, okay, there is a reason why these letters are chosen, and they fit to the descriptions. Although you still already could see, like, okay, there are some variations still possible, but the focuses of these words themselves go towards a certain point which is inevitable. So even with a word like the hart in the German language, which is almost like heart with D in the English and the Dutch language, the association that you have there are still limited to a certain range, the range that is actually around that focus which is possible, and not much more should be able to be associated from there. The automatic associations that usually are coming forth from it should also restrict themselves by the limitations of the associations that the letters can bring, the combinations of letters can bring. Okay, maybe I'll work it out better some other time, but this is already an introduction about these two strangely connected words. As an example, this should have been good enough. Thanks again for watching. Bye.